Hi, my name's Derek, and in this Avoca video executive summary, we'll be looking at electronic forms, a better way of collecting information. We'll start with a quick introduction and then show you some of the things that are possible with electronic forms delivered by Avoca and Adobe Lifecycle Enterprise Suite. I think you'll be surprised at what's possible. Why is it that large organizations in the public and private sector can build wonderful websites, but when the customer wants to apply for products or services, request more information, or transact in any way, more often than not, we're presented with a form to be printed, filled with a pen, and mailed or faxed? So it seems we're able to discover information online, but so often we can't subsequently transact online. Now, this isn't just a point of frustration for the customer. Organizations receiving and processing these forms should already know that paper form processing is costly. For example, for every dollar spent producing paper forms, over $30 is spent processing paper forms. And in financial services, for example, 38% of applications for products such as credit cards and insurance arrive with incorrect or missing information. And organizations lose paper documents at a rate of about 25%. So paper is a lose-lose situation for both customer and company. And when you consider the fact that 85% of all business processes start with a form, we realize the problem is truly significant. Historically, organizations have tackled this problem by creating web pages for data capture as electronic forms. But these forms are developed by programmers at significant cost and risk and typically take weeks or months, not the days the business user is expecting. And even if these forms are created and the customer has the right browser and operating system for the forms to work, I think we've all had the experience of putting a lot of time and information into an online form to subsequently lose all that information because of a lost internet connection, failed laptop battery, or accidentally hitting the browser back button. And these experiences inevitably drive us to look for a more reliable option, which typically is the paper form. Thankfully, there are alternatives. Some organizations are successfully deploying specific electronic form technologies such as Adobe Lifecycle for data capture. And surprise, surprise, it's working. The trick is to have the IT team put in place a platform such as Adobe Lifecycle along with Avoca SmartForm Suite that can be used by the business team to create, deploy and manage their electronic forms and services and make them accessible to customers or users regardless of the channel the customer chooses to interact. But enough chat. Let's see some electronic forms in action. Let's start our eForms showcase with an interactive PDF smartform. In this case, we're looking at the application for compensation, counseling and expenses for victims of violent crime. At the top of the form, we're provided with information on when to use this form, how to complete this form, and some contact details if we need assistance. The first questions we need to answer relate to the type of application we're making. We have three options. If we're unsure what these options mean, we can click on the button here to get help with this section. So the information that assists us to complete the form is provided in line with the appropriate section of the form, rather than in a separate booklet. As we make selections, appropriate sections of the form appear below us. So we'll select yes, no, no, and move forward. So let's enter some information. As you'd expect in an electronic form, we have drop-down lists, fields for entering information, radio buttons that can also be used to show and hide sections of the form depending on what's relevant, fields for specific data types like phone numbers with validation to help us if we enter an obviously incorrect entry. And the same for email addresses. One of the questions here is to describe if we were a primary victim or a secondary victim. If we're unsure of the definition of a primary or secondary victim, we can click on the More Information buttons here to get a description of what each of these means. In this particular form, one of the most complicated challenges for the victim was describing the injuries in a way that was consistent with the legal requirements for the appropriate compensation to be awarded. This was overcome with a graphical injury selector inside the interactive PDF form. So let's say we suffered a dislocated shoulder with continuing disability, and unfortunately we also suffered a fracture to the skull. As these selections are made, the list of injuries being claimed is shown below in a simple table format. This is a reasonably long form, so if I run out of time to complete it or would like some assistance from a partner or a medical specialist, I can simply save a copy to my computer for completion later, and I can also email the form to somebody else to help me to fill it in if required. If I attempt to submit an incomplete form, I'm presented with a list of issues to be resolved before the form can be successfully submitted. Clicking on any issue will bring me to that issue, and I can see all problem areas in the form are highlighted in red, giving me the confidence to know that if the form is submitted successfully, the form requirements must be complete. It's easy to see how this form has improved the application for compensation process by simplifying the application form for victims, removing errors and associated rework for caseworkers, and allowing electronic submission to remove the need to manually key information. Let's take a look at a different type of electronic form. It's another claim, but this time it's an online form for a motor vehicle accident. Let's click on the link to report a claim. This form is an Adobe Lifecycle form guide running inside the Flash Player, which has the distinct advantage of allowing us to create a rich and engaging experience which will work on 99% of computers, as that's the percentage of computers with the Flash Player already installed, regardless of whether they're running Windows, Apple Mac or Linux. As a logged in customer, the form is pre-populated with my information. As I click the Continue button, I'm automatically moved to the next section of the electronic claim form. The navigation bar at the top of the form shows my progress through the form screens. Let's enter some details about the vehicle. We've already got 2 cars registered on our policy, but in this case it was another car, a hire car, that had the accident. The car was a Toyota. It was a Prius, 2006, and it was grey. The vehicle wasn't owned by me. It was owned by Hire Me Hire Cars. Now, in this engaging experience, rather than trying to describe the damage to the vehicle, let's just specify what happened. The front bonnet, bumper and wing were all severely damaged. And we can add a note regarding the damage that we can't describe by clicking on the vehicle. Continuing the rich and engaging experience, we'll describe how the accident occurred by drawing it rather than typing it. We can specify the type of intersection based on a defined set of options. In this way, it was a 4-way intersection with 2 lanes. We were driving straight and the other car cut across in front of us. Now that we've provided the required information, let's submit our claim. And as you'd expect with an electronic claim submission, you receive a reference number for your submission. So those are 2 examples of different types of forms, but the form itself is only part of the story. Using Adobe Lifecycle and solutions like Avoca Form Center, your organization can create, deploy and process form submissions through an integrated solution, whilst providing customers with an interactive portal for managing their online relationship. Let's take a look at an example of an electronic form experience delivered by Adobe Lifecycle and Avoca Form Center. We'll log into the GovAssist portal. In the portal landing page, we see we have 4 options. We can find forms, we can look at our submissions, we can see that we've got 1 to-do item, and we can manage our account details. When we click on Find Forms, we're presented with a list of available forms. In this case, we're going to enroll in a cancer screening test. The form opens up in a separate window. As a logged in user, information that's already known about me has been pre-populated into the form. Similar to our first example, this is an interactive PDF electronic form, allowing me to take it offline should I choose to. Let's jump forward and hit the Submit button. For the purposes of the demonstration, all validations inside the form have been turned off. Within Form Center, we have defined that this form has some mandatory supporting information and some optional supporting documents. We have the option of uploading this information if we have it electronically, or delivering it manually if we only have a paper copy and no access to a scanner. Let's upload a PDF copy of the required information. When I click to attach a file, I can browse through the standard user interface. I can select my health report and attach it. Once the required attachment has been added, the Attachments Completed button is enabled, allowing us to proceed. This form also has a payment defined in Form Center, so we're automatically directed to a payments page to enter credit card details to complete our submission. Let's quickly enter some information and make a payment. Upon successful confirmation of our payment, we are provided with a confirmation page for our form submission with a reference number and links to save our submission receipt, have it automatically emailed to us, or return to the Form Center portal to see the form submission and associated receipt there. Let's proceed back to Form Center. In our My Submissions page, we can see the latest form submission is at the top of the list. And by clicking on the icons to the right, we can get additional information about the form submission, such as the receipt number and the payment. And through this PDF icon, we can view a read-only PDF receipt of the submission that we've just made. As you can see, Adobe and Avoca offer a full set of capabilities for electronic forms, including online forms, offline but interactive PDF forms, validation inside forms, pre-population, submission management, payment processing, uploading supporting documentation, and submission receipting. If you want to improve your data collection options beyond traditional paper forms, please make sure to contact us through avoca.com. Thank you.